All right, we are live with another episode of the Blue Crocus Experience. I've got a really cool guest here today, someone I've been following for, I don't know, it's been at least a year,
Mhm.
because since I joined Apex, you kind of were in there making moves, making stuff happen. So I want to welcome Zach ROI Williams to the show today. And Zach, just give everybody a welcome, and we'll dive right into who you are and what you do and what's going on.
Awesome, man. Well, Lewis, dude, I'm super honored to be here. Likewise, been following you for quite some time. I feel like we're homies, even though we're hundreds of miles apart. But that's what's really cool about the world we live in. With all the technology that we have and these networks that we're provided with. So I'm excited to pour into your network. I'm excited to learn from you, and let's see what we can make happen.
I love it. I love it. So tell people where you are, where you're located.
Yeah, so we're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Originally born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. Came to Baton Rouge about 2 years ago. I kind of joke with my wife that she's my little refugee. So I found her when she got washed up because of Hurricane Katrina. I rescued her, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, she ended up bringing us back down here, and I'm not complaining because I love crawfish. And when I'm not on 75 hard, I do like beer too.
I love it, man. I love it. So where I first, kind of started paying attention to you, I guess, was a post you made. I think you've sprinkled variations of this story in your post, right? But it seems to me like it's a very pivotal part of your life. Take us back to your motorcycle accident and what happened there, and how your life changed after that, because it feels like there's something that happened, something that really got going. I mean, obviously you had to be a certain type of person to end up here where you are, but bring us back to the accident and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, this is exciting for me, and like 100%. And I don't even care. This is a shameless plug. Like, I've got a book dropping in a few months, and it is about this, right? And it's, to your point, it's because this was such an impactful moment in my life. I mean, there's other stuff in the book, but this is, I mean, out the gates, I hit people hard with this, and it's because I wouldn't be here without that. And not in the sense of life and death, which there is that, but the discovery of, like, almost like that's the story of like a phoenix, right? Like, it's birthed through the ashes. So like, I think that time of my life, you have fight or flight. I chose to fight. And I think if it had gone very many other ways that it could have gone, we would not be having this conversation. But regardless, yeah, so we're coming up. My book drops April 13th of 2023, not to timestamp this episode. But the reason that I say that is because it is going to be the 10-year anniversary of that wreck. So we're coming up on a decade.
That's cool. I didn't know you were doing that symmetry there.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about it. And what's cool about that is everything that you're seeing now, I just want people to understand it's been a decade of finding myself, finding my lane, finding my future. Like, what are my core values? Like, really, who is Zach Williams? Because, I'm Zach ROI Williams now. That's that persona I adopted. When I had that wreck, I was Zach IWWD Williams, which was a clothing line that I had started prior to the wreck. And it's funny you say this because, my camera, for those of you who are listening, I'm pointing at my camera right now, but directly under my camera in my field of view is a 21-inch wide motorcycle wheel. Now, as you can imagine, the circumference of a motorcycle wheel, right? It's a circle, obviously, and in the dead center of that is where the axle goes through. Well, both sides of this 21-inch wheel are concaved in and are actually touching the axle. So part of that, on one side of that would have been the frame of my motorcycle, and the other side of that would have been the frame of the vehicle that I impacted. So long story short, a car pulled out in front of me and hit me head on while they were doing about, I'd say 25 to 30 miles an hour, and I was doing about 55 to 60. So as you can imagine, 90 miles an hour worth of, force to a complete stop. At that point in time, you got to imagine I'm on a motorcycle. I'm not tied in with a seat belt, or there's nothing in front of me. So like with inertia, as my body's moving and the thing that I'm on stops, I continue to go, right? And that's where all that damage came into play. Long story short, he hit me. I ended up flying over 100 feet, doing 2 complete front flips, bouncing off the ground, and found myself laying in the middle of the busiest street in Memphis, Tennessee, during rush hour traffic on a weekend, bleeding out in a pool of my own blood. And I'm in a situation where luckily there was I don't know the full story because I was in and out of consciousness, but I know that there was one person whom I have never heard anything about since and have not been able to find. Was this an angel? Who knows? But there was someone that was actively holding my head while I'm bleeding out, while everyone else was getting out of their car, stealing my money, of my cash that flew out of my wallet. Someone had actually beelined for my pistol that went flying. Luckily, that was recovered by a off-duty police officer that saw it and saw someone beelining for it, and he was able to beat someone out there. But even as far down as my shoes, one of my shoes actually flew off, and those went about 50 or 60 feet in the air. One landed on the hood of a car at the scene of the accident. That poor lady ended up undergoing 9 months of therapy to overcome how dramatic this scene was. And then actually someone else was actually trying to steal one of my shoes, believe it or not, and someone else stopped them there. So as you can imagine, this situation was just out of the norm for a lot of people. This is not something you see every day, as you can imagine. And to kind of give you an idea of how critical this was, the police chief ended up having to basically flip a coin to see if there was enough time for them to clear out enough space for the helicopter to land, or me be taken by ambulance and me get back to the hospital all before I bled out and died. And the reason the blood was such a concern is after they ended up getting me to the hospital in a 9-day period, I bled through 27 units of blood. To put that in perspective, your body only holds 8 to 10. So that was about the equivalent of me bleeding out 3 complete times. So it was a pretty insane story. Nonetheless, ended up with about $1.2 million in medical bills through that whole process. I was in ICU for 6 weeks in my step down unit for 2 weeks after that. The first, I think it was like 9 days, I was just completely undergoing 27 surgeries in 9 days. I never woke up for 9 days. So, was I alive? Was I not? Who knows? But I know that the main concern, and I apologize, I'm just taking so long to explain all this.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, the main concern was my aorta. So apparently your aorta is separated into different sectors, right? When a surgeon's going in, like he needs to know which part of this sector or section or portion he needs to work on. And apparently many people don't know this, but the size of the sector of what I tore is about the size of a garden hose. And this is actually the injury that airplane crash victims die from if there's not like a physical explosion. It's that force of impact separates that aorta, and you end up bleeding out before anyone can get to you. But
like internal bleeding.
Correct. Yeah. And but I was able to survive that. Not only that, but statistically, the recovery surgery from that one injury alone, only 1 in 3 people survive. So I ended up, it was quite a process. They were working on 3 separate surgery sites at one time, all in critical need. My aorta, shattered pelvis, and a ruptured scrotum. I was bleeding out pretty profusely there. But anyways, it was a pretty insane experience to have that critical amount of surgery happening all at one time. I ended up coding twice, and apparently found this out way later, but apparently if I had coded again or if it had gone much longer, there would not have been a third time that they resuscitated me, just due to the violence, the aggression, and how critical everything was going. But I was told I was never going to walk again. I was told I was not going to be able to do a whole lot of shit again, but here we are. And it's definitely left me forever changed.
That's insane. So you kind of mentioned it, and I think now that we've heard the story, there's more context for people who are listening. That wheel is in your field of vision. Is that something you keep like front and center all the time? Is it just because you've been like doing some photo shoots for the book?
No, it's I mean, it's something. Even if that wheel wasn't here, I mean, it's something that I think about all day, every day. It's the reason of who I am, a big portion of my book that's coming out, and something that, I'm not picking fun at anyone by any means, but some of the greatest speakers I've ever heard in my entire life speak about how a death was that pivotal moment in their life. A loved one, a significant other, a friend, a family, whatever the case. For me, that death was me. As I'm laying in the middle of the street bleeding out, I kind of joke around about some of this stuff that you see in movies about death.
Yeah.
The reason they're in there is because someone went through an experience like me and told them that shit is real, because the stuff that goes on in those movies, the light at the end of the tunnel, seeing your life flash before your eyes, all this stuff is real. And one of the things that I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, like one of the things that was like so real to me is I was laying there bleeding out. I mean, I'm talking a pool of my blood. There's a picture of the amount of blood that was left behind. And I remember being the most tired I've ever been in my entire life. Like if you could just go back to that one time, maybe you stayed up a day or two, right? Like just every chance you got, your eyes were trying to close. Multiply that by 100. I mean, we're talking almost uncontrollable. But in my head, I knew what that meant. Like I knew if I had succumbed to that and I had actually, quote unquote, gone to sleep, I knew that was me letting go. And I fought through that. I don't have like some super hero story to tell you. It's like, I saw my life flash before my eyes and this and that. Like, I don't know what was able. I know that I knew that I didn't want to give up on my friends. I knew that I didn't want to give up on my family. And I knew that I had like more to do. But like all it was that next second, that's all I could think of is like, don't close your eyes yet. Don't close your eyes yet. Don't close your eyes yet. And I mean, here we are.
That's crazy. And then you would have gone under at some point, for the next week and a half or so as they operated. So you come out the other side and, you said in there, and you can kind of see it in the way you carry yourself online, you had more to do. There was unfinished business. Was that like a terrifying thought, or like, man, like I've barely started, I've got like so much to do?
Man, it's a great question, and I think that's something that I don't care who you are, I don't care what you've been through, there still is always some sort of imposter syndrome or just mentality of like where you feel egotistical putting yourself on a pedestal, right? Like I'm at a very, very impactful moment in my life, my family's life, and the people that I'm associated with. Like I've come from nothing, and I don't want this to be like a rags to riches thing, but like I've come from nothing to, this year speaking on stage in front of 3,000 people, book launching, all this stuff that is putting me out there as this authority figure and this character that people can start to associate with and learn to love and learn to trust and learn to get to know. It's a mindset shift of all of that happened for what's going on right now 10 years later. Like that specifically happened so I could be who I am today for this reason. And it's wild. It's wild to think about it as that being you. I'm doing 75 hard right now. And so my wife and I, yesterday we're actually discussing this on our outdoor workout. And I said, it's crazy to me think that like I've got this book coming out. And to me, it's boring. Like to me, I'm like, this is my life. This is just all I know. Like I wake up every day and I live as this person. Versus my publisher was like, I never tell my husband about these books. I told my husband about this. I said, this is something special. I said, I could not put it down. She's like, I've read your book twice now. She's like, I don't do that with everybody. And so for me, I'm like, how do I wrap my head around, and this is kind of what that transition is like, I knew I was meant for more. And now here it is knocking. And I'm like, I feel arrogant. I feel egotistical. I feel like some type of way stepping into those shoes and saying like, can I cuss on this channel?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I feel weird stepping into those shoes and be like, I am that motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, it is a wild mental like transition. But like, now that I've done that officially, like working through this book and retelling these stories, and you think that's a crazy story. There's 3 other stories in that book that's pretty insane too. It's wild to me to be like, you know what? I've got to accept that, because like people out there need to hear these stories and hear the lessons that I was able to pull from them, because guess what? I don't want y'all to go through what I did. So if I can take what I had to learn the hard way, for those of you that are just listening, my whole like underwater sleeve is my depiction of Jonah and the whale. What did Jonah and the whale out of the Bible do? He had to learn shit the hard way. Guess what? Unfortunately, I had to learn shit the hard way, but it's my mission to tell you about it so that you don't have to.
We're the Nineveh that you're coming to tell.
There you go. Exactly.
I love it. You mentioned getting goosebumps. So when you mentioned the wheel there, I brought it up, and kind of circled back on that, no pun intended. That's crazy, dude. That's really cool, but really crazy. And I think there's something here that, it hasn't quite formulated for me, right? Listening to this through with you, there's something so pivotal about that moment, right? Your life flashes before your eyes. You're holding on, you're hanging on because there's more to do. And then you have those reminders. You said you were taking a long time telling it, but I really appreciated you telling it. It's kind of ridiculous that people were stealing from you. And I can imagine that woman, like if she watched what happened and saw your shoe land on her windshield like that, this is like, it's not a fail video anymore. It's like someone's life is like, bleeding out on the road. Right.
Yeah.
So fast forward now,
mm-hmm.
you were running the I think you said an apparel line. And that's still going on the side, or did you split off from that?
No, and so that ended up falling apart due to the wreck. Okay. And there's a whole nother story there. With all the medical bills and everything, plus I was confined to a medical bed for over a year after the wreck. So I was in ICU for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, step down unit for 2 weeks. And then when they moved me home, I couldn't walk for over 9 months, but a total 12 months I was confined to a medical bed. We did continue to run it afterwards, but at some point, push came to shove, and it's going to come back though. My wife is on me about it. It's passionate. It is literally tattooed shoulder blade to shoulder blade. It takes up half my back, and it's, I still chalk it up as a quote unquote fail right now, but it's my favorite fail that I've ever been through. And it's taught me more in failing that company than any lesson, course, guru, coaching, anything can teach me.
So you're sitting there for a year. What's going through your mind? Like, you don't seem like someone that likes to sit around. I know you've got like the party organizer background. I don't know if that was before or after the wreck, but you're not someone that likes to sit around. How was that? Because I've broken my leg before. It sounds petty after hearing what you've been through, but being confined is tough. Being confined and not being able to like live, being in pain all over. How did you get through that?
Dude, it was insane. But, this is going to be kind of comical for many people. So confined to and I would say, after I started walking, which again was about 9 months later, so there's like a 3-month period where I was able to at least get out of the house via like wheelchair, walker, whatever, until I started walking on my own again. But still, you're talking about 9 months of, basically being a little bitch, a little baby that can't do nothing. And again, it's my story, so it sounds fucking boring, but honestly, like I look back and as I say it sometimes in certain light, I'm like, I'm a badass, dude, because like dude, I was having, by the time I got able to be transferred to a wheelchair, at this point in time, I'm standing in front of you right now. For those of you who aren't watching or listening or watching, pardon me, I'm sitting here about 220 right now. When I got finally able to stand up, everyone just pretty much gasped because they saw it became nothing but skin and bones. I mean, to be honest, I was somewhere between 130 and 140 pounds.
Wow.
So I was sitting in a wheelchair, and I had my friend come over who's a personal trainer and sit behind my wheelchair, lock the wheels on my wheelchair with rubber bands, and I would do bench press sitting in a wheelchair, right? So I am very much someone that does not like to sit around, even so much so that before I could walk, and I barely had any muscle, I got into my wheelchair somehow and let myself out the front door because I wanted some sunshine. I just had to get out of the house. And my house at the time, the driveway had a slight incline to it. I mean, slight incline. Well, I was able to make my way down the driveway, but I could not make my way back up the driveway. So I literally sat in the middle of the street waiting for someone to come push me back up inside. But
that's incredible.
If that gives you any type of idea on what I was going through, but man, you're right. I wasn't taking no for an answer. As quickly as I could get access to my laptop to start working and pushing the clothing line again. I mean, literally from a medical bed, we ended up launching. I mean, it was print on demand stuff at this point in time. So I transitioned everything from any type of plastisol or anything that was like bulk prints. We transitioned to a POD model just to help out, and I ended up launching like 300 new articles for our clothing line while in the hospital bed. Even so much so that prior to the wreck, I was directing and shooting music videos for people, and it got to the point where I said, man, I can't go out there and shoot them. So guess what? I was going back through people's music videos and creating montage hype clips and stuff. So I was still very, very much working as soon as I could. I mean, it hadn't always been like that. I mean, I was beat up pretty bad. So, but as soon as I could, dude, I was right back to the grind.
That's wild. So where does ROI marketing come from? Like where was that born?
So ROI marketing firm was born 4 years ago now, but my entire background is in marketing. So even though I owned the clothing line, like I didn't know the clothing line business, I just knew the marketing business.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's crazy for me to say this out loud. I started it when I was 19. By the time I ended up wrecking, which was 22, because I celebrated my 23rd birthday in emergency surgery. So April 13th was the wreck. April 19th is my birthday.
Wow.
So
not a whole lot of celebrating from you though.
Oh yeah. Well, shit, I was asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But at that point in those 3 years, we were in 4 different countries. I think in 26 states. I actually turned down a PacSun deal. My dumb ass, I know. I was young and dumb and didn't understand business. But so it had gotten to be something that was pretty big, but it was all based on the marketing, right? So my experience up until this point, I've got 16 years of marketing experience, and 13 of those years were in corporate America. So as I got back on my feet, which again, I go into it pretty in detail in my book, but I was not looking to. It was a massive mindset shift because, I was 19 years old working marketing for a multi-million-dollar organization, and at the time getting paid like $70,000 a year as a 19-year-old. Like that's pretty good. I ended up dropping out of college because I fell in love with marketing at that time and realized that I could make more money here than what I was even going to college for. So, what you see in front of you, I am very much so like, it's not just what you know, but it's who you know as well. But anyways, I allowed my work ethic to prove itself and climbed up the corporate ladder to making 6 figures, by the time I was 22. And after the wreck, I lost a 6-figure job. I mean, the whole rags to riches story you can imagine. I mean, homeless, this, that, whatever. Now, I use homeless loosely because I had enough people that like I was never like on the streets, but theoretically, one morning in my life, I woke up to find out that the house that I had bought was no longer mine, and had to figure some shit out pretty damn quick. But anyways, going through all that, I had to get back into the game. And the clothing line at this point in time had been bankrupted. I started getting back into and kind of reviving the company that I used to throw events again, but also that still wasn't making ends meet totally. So I had to get back into corporate America. And as I started getting my foot wet back in corporate America, I kept getting turned down for the salary requests that I was asking. I'm like, listen, guys, like, this is what I'm worth, but everyone wants to start you and see, right? So I had to learn a very valuable lesson because I was like, dude, I'm not taking these jobs, making $60,000, $70,000 a year. I was like, that's not, no. And, I was in the gym one day and one of my buddies was like, I was bitching to him about it. And he's like, well, how did you get to, you were making phenomenal money at a very young age. Like, how did you get there? And I was like, dude, that's just my work ethic. I got in, I grinded till I climbed to the top of the ladder, and I just kept eating, like just killing it. And he goes, so fucking do it again, bro. And I was like, oh my God, and so sure enough, jumped back in the corporate game somewhere around, 60, 70, maybe 60 to 80 grand. And grinded that out until I decided to launch ROI marketing firm in January 1st of 2020 and exited corporate America making about 150 a year. So I just decided I had to, I just got tired. I was smart enough to know how much money I was making everybody else and what little they were paying me. And I realized that I could scale this pretty significantly. And so I just went for it, bro.
I love it. So marketing's in your blood. So we could talk at length about, the stuff that everybody knows about: websites, SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, all that stuff. What are some of the most out of the box marketing stuff that you've done? Tell us a few stories about that, because you don't seem like an in the box kind of guy.
No, I'm definitely not. And I definitely think that there's synergy in all of it. But realistically, you have to track everything. We're talking, I've done billboard ads, radio ads, this, that, whatever, but you've got to track it. I can't tell you, I know that a majority of your following's in the service-based industry. I cannot tell you the biggest mistake you can make when it comes to billboards is having the same phone number on all of them. Like, I know that sounds elementary to some of us, but some people are like, what do you mean? Like, when I get involved, I don't care if it's a billboard, I don't care if it's a park bench, I don't care if it's a Facebook advertisement, an Instagram advertisement, Google PPC, all of those. If you're making $3 to $5 million a year, looking to make that 10 million, this is how you do it. Every one of those avenues needs to have a different landing page URL with a different sequence, with a different phone number. Everything needs to be tracked, because if you're just dumping $100,000 a month or a year into billboards, that's great. But you're one on the corner of Sherwood and Sharp might be doing 100x your ROI versus you got 50 other billboards throughout the town that are not converting at all. And you don't know because you're not tracking it. So there's a lot that we could get into on like how to track things and a lot of the out of the box stuff. The biggest, I think, feeder into where we got to where we are is synergizing sales and marketing, because your sales departments blame your marketing departments that the leads are trash. Marketing blames sales that they can't close the door. So we synergize those departments. And then, then it comes to the automation. I'm not one to ever take a job from an American, but also I want to help people become more efficient, right? They say the average person who work in the workspace only, puts themselves out there about 60% of what they're worth. I want to find a robot to make up that other 40%. And realistically, they're not going to make up just 40%. They're going to make up another 60, 70, 80%. Shit, some would even argue 100%. But anyways, there's a whole automation sequence. My CEO is an ex-Microsoft engineer. So we brought him in because he could build these insane back-end platforms to track literally everything. Like I was saying, everything that I do, I am massive when it comes to split testing everything. I need a huge system on the back end to track all those different phone numbers, all those different landing pages, all those different sequences, all those different funnels. And so he could do that. But then he would build these systems for these companies like, all right, cool, here you go. Here is a business. And they'd be like, all right, well, we haven't made any sales. Well, yeah, it's just a system. It's just like software and hardware and sequences and processes. And, like this is your intellectual property. So versus us, the marketing side, we would bring influx of leads. And as those influx of leads come in and start overwhelming them, they're like, well, how do we manage all this? Well, it's like, that's not what we do. So just like we synergize the sales and the marketing, we came in and synergized the automation and the marketing. So now we have this entire program that comes in that starts churning those leads and gathering leads. Then we start actually processing those and closing those. Then we start actually following up with those and squeezing as much juice out of the fruit as we can. So like that in and of itself is like the out of the box program that we do. As far as the marketing concept, and I'll kind of pitch this to your network because I think this is really good for the service-based. And in fact, one of the events I'm speaking at in front of 3,000 people are all in the HVAC system based on the system that we designed. So Harvard, now this was in the realtor space, but we actually took all this, built a strategy for realtors, decided that we hate realtors because they know it all, and transitioned this into the home services based industry. So we deal a lot with roofing, solar, HVAC, the whole 9 yards. But what we did is Harvard ran a study where they surveyed 200 homeowners in Southern California. And they asked them, who is your local trusted realtor? There was no congruency. I mean, oh, it's the person that sold me my house. Oh, it was the person that, my aunt, my uncle, or neighbor, or best friend's sister, whatever. Well, they ran what's called an 8x8 campaign. Now, this was a direct mail campaign where they sent out one flyer per week for 8 weeks. All right. At the end of those 8 weeks, they resurveyed all 200 homeowners. Now, here's the kicker. This was a made-up persona, a made-up name, a made-up logo, a made-up website, a stock photo, and they threw this out there as this is who your local neighborhood trusted realtor is. After that, when they surveyed all 200 homeowners, 60% of the homeowners said, this was my trusted realtor. They never met this guy. They've never seen this guy. All they did was get one postcard a week for 8 weeks, keeping him top of mind. Now, they maybe could have not said who his name was or what company was, but they recognized him. So we took that strategy, which is an 8-week period with 8 touches. Boom, 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 boom. We decided to take it a step further and add in what we're really good at, which is the the digital mail or digital marketing side of things. So we take direct mail, we take the strategy and the concept that Harvard did, that Harvard spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, so we didn't have to, and implemented it into what we're good at. So now, instead of just 8 touches in an 8-week period, we actually get about 60 to 85 touches in an 8-week period by including the direct mail pieces, all of our retargeting. We do Google PPC on specific hyper-targeted areas, as well as all the retargeting, social media, and things like that. And man, that's what we do, bro. It's been fun.
That is something just clicked for me, Zach, as we're talking, because that's true, right? The people that we see often, this is a common marketing thing, right? The people that we see often are the people that we begin to trust. It's the know, like, and trust thing. Yes. And there's something about that. Just clicked. I'm working on a strategy of a way that I can reach out to a certain sector, and I'm like, boom, that's it. That's so good.
And I'll give you a one up on that too. So here's a kicker for everyone in the service-based company that's listening. I'm going to use Baton Rouge, for example. Baton Rouge, we're your number one roofers. Yeah, you and 260 other companies are saying, Baton Rouge, we're your number one roofers, right? Versus, hey, Sherwood Forest, we're your number one local trusted roofer. Now, when I see that advertisement, I'm like, holy shit, I'm in Sherwood. I've been in Sherwood.
They know me, yeah.
So now you start taking this a step further. Now, I'm not saying that you can't say that to Sherwood Forest and this neighborhood and this over here, but once you start changing up that messaging and going back to what I was saying earlier about everything needs to be trackable, everything needs to be, you need to have analytics on everything. So I might run this for a client, this is actually what we do. It's called virtual door knock. So we coined this term, the virtual door knock. So you've got all these industries that have door knockers. They're great, but we want to prime these areas before your door knockers even go out there, because what we want is your sales guys are going to have a lot better attitude when they know now that 7 out of the 10 doors that they knock on are going to open their door versus only 2, right? So we're priming them. So by the time your door knockers go out and survey any specific area, they've seen our faces 65 to 85 times. And guess what? We can get so specific with these markets and this marketing that the postcards, that the retargeting, that all the campaigns can have that salesperson's face on it. So when they go up, and they can be different, like you can have John over here in Sherwood Forest, you can have Chris over here, and all this likeness, and then they start seeing your trucks go in. And guess what? As you start closing these deals, now the marketing starts using imagery of houses that they know. Damn, that's the Williamses on the corner right there with the orange shutters. They did their job. If the Williams can trust them, guess what? Maybe I can trust them. And boom.
How do you do that at scale? Because is that where your software comes in and builds it all out, or are you still manually doing all the ad copy and all the ad setup?
So we've got, we are not a cookie cutter marketing agency. Everything we do, and you're going to pay a premium for us. It is what it is. Literally right before I was getting on this call, I just posted a client that we've generated like 3.7 million in leads for a 16% conversion rate in our first 7 months of even just working with them. Brand new organization with a brand new offer, right? But it's not cookie cutter. Like, we have to custom make all this stuff, but the strategies there are all the same. So like, we know what messaging works. We know what copy works. We know to take them down this customer journey to get them to start knowing, liking, and trusting you. And then again, once you start penetrating these networks at scale, and that's what we do. And what I'll be speaking in front of 3,000 HVAC companies about is doing this themselves. Is you've got to know that, like, once you start putting yourself out there and you're everywhere they need, they can't do anything but work with you. I mean, they're going to start seeing your trucks in their neighborhood. I mean, we even got it to where the strategies say, hey, we just closed your neighbor's house 3 doors down. We're going to be in the neighborhood. We apologize if we're causing any inconvenience, but if you are, here's a number that you can call to reach out to us and let us know. Like, I mean, dude, that's
a lead generator right there, and that number is a different number than any of the other numbers, because people are going to call and ask for you to come down to their house. That's genius. I've heard it. I've heard it before, but something just clicked with me. I think the study backing that up. That's phenomenal, because you see it in groups. You're doing the same thing, right? And I see you doing this with your brand. You're showing up. You're showing up on podcasts. You're writing the book. You're showing up on stage. You're building an omnipresence for you, so that you become the trusted person for people to reach out to.
Exactly.
And anybody who thinks about that as a consumer, that's how we work. You start seeing an ad enough times. I mean, we know the stats on, I think it's more than 22 touches now. You might know more of that, from your perspective, but it used to be like 22 touches to get someone to really know, like, and trust you, right?
Yes.
You got to be in front of people. That's so cool, man. That's so cool that you guys are doing that and really dialing in. And I think that I've heard one other person do the, hey, we're working at your neighbor's house. If it's a problem, give us a call. That's what do you see? Like, what are the results from that?
You'd be astonished to know that, like, you can take someone that's aggravated, like maybe they parked in front of a fire hydrant, or maybe they're blocking a car in, or maybe listen, we're still dealing with humans, right? And now typically, and this is something that we train a lot on, is, when we come in and consult companies like this, like, there's a lot that goes into it, like leaving the homeowner's address better than you found it. I mean, we're talking taking their garbage cans out for them or putting them back, or you get to the job site and maybe you're a solar guy and a new roof just came up, but you see nails all in the yard, cleaning the nails up. You found some Skull dip cans, right? It's all these little things that can accidentally be equated to your organization, even though it wasn't you. You can remedy that situation and use that now as a lead source, because now they at least already know who you are. And hopefully by the end of that call, they like you. So we're seeing, I mean, honestly, 60, 70% conversion rates from upset people that don't even really know why they're upset, to at least, I'm not saying 60, 70 close rate, but at least getting our foot in the door to have that conversation.
That's phenomenal. Well, man, this has gone too fast. I'm going to do a little bit of a fire round on personal branding, because that's something that you're doing very well. Because I know we both got to jump at the top of the hour. If you only had two places to build your personal brand, and I'm speaking into this from the perspective of seeing you're on Facebook, you're sharing articles on Haro, you're getting published in different articles, you're doing blog posts, you're getting on podcasts. If you could do one or two of those and go absolutely gung-ho, and you only had those two options, what would you do to build your personal brand?
So I'm going to give you a bonus one, then I'm going to actually answer it the way I think that you're asking it. So
I don't have an answer, but yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Well, so the first one is, in my personal opinion, is networking events. Mm-hmm. We're so ingrained now to see what an advertisement is that, I mean, we're seeing 4,000 to 10,000 a day. I mean, us guys can't go pee in a urinal without seeing one directly in our face, right? So people know that this is an ad or whatever. So obviously, if you're going to do anything, you need to take them down a customer journey, get them to know, like, and trust you first. You're not selling a product or service. You're selling the dream. Your product or service just happens to be the vehicle to get there. But I personally think, because we are so numb to advertisements on any screen now, that personal touch, getting in front of someone, being able to shake their hands, give them a hug, share a beer with them, whatever that is going to be your highest conversion rate. So let's throw that out of the window and say, if it wasn't networking events, if it was something on the digital space, right? Social media, this, that, whatever. I firmly believe that you need to track your numbers. You need to know how many impressions it takes to be able to get how many conversations, from how many conversations to how many, hot leads, how many hot leads to close deals, how many closed deals to how many referrals you can get. You need to know all these numbers. Once you know that, you can turn your social media into a math problem. So once you start doing that, I think initially you need to test out whether that is on TikTok, whether that is on Instagram, Facebook, paid ads. You need to test that, see where you get the most momentum and where you can turn that into an a math problem, right? Once you reverse engineer all those, for some people, it might be TikTok. I know several companies that you would never have ever imagined would blow up on TikTok, have blown up on TikTok because it worked for them, and they never would have known it. They never even tried it. Now they were making multi-millions of dollars a year because of some stupid dance app, whatever. So I think testing it, but irregardless, I think if outside of all that, if there was two options I had to choose, Facebook for me personally, and your own podcast. Force people from your Facebook onto your podcast, because now you're taking it off rented land onto land that you own. You own all that analytics from your podcast, and we can sit here and argue whether or not Apple owns it or Spotify owns it or whatever. That podcast side conversations, how you're going to start building out lead gen through emails and all that. And I mean, at the end of the day, if we're going to argue about what's rented land and what's land you own, honestly, we don't fucking own any of it. Your website goes down, your email provider crashes. Like, at the end of the day, there needs to be some redundancies there. But for me personally, Facebook podcast.
Cool. What about blogs? I see you putting out a lot of articles on a pretty consistent basis. Is that mainly just for SEO?
Yes, that is for SEO, but it's also for so I write, and basically my team does this for me now. I've done all the heavy lifting. I do all the long form content. I've written a ridiculous amount of blogs. They now have that. My team utilizes AI to go write based off. So one team member goes out and figures out what is the trending, conversations in each industry that we're trying to hit in and what SEO we're trying to rank for. What they then do is they go use AI to write it based off all my previous content that I've written. They then go rewrite it, because SEO will start blocking you if you're just using AI content. One of them goes and rewrites it, and then another one audits it, and they flip-flop. So one writes, another audits, it then goes to a blog. Those blogs are going to be decided on the Medium articles I put out and the Haro articles. So it's a multi-purpose. Is it for SEO? Yes, but I'm also submitting 5 to 7 written articles a day to publications so that they can go then rewrite them, rephrase me, quote me, whatever, that double dips on the SEO. And now I get access to their network and not just mine.
How do you track leads coming off of that?
So that's a great question. I don't. Anything on the SEO side of things or the organic, like just happen to end up on my website, I do not. Now, all of that combined has one call to action that I do track. But at the end of the day, SEO is such a long-term play. And even those publications, some are larger, some are smaller. They don't typically produce a high enough ROI for me to have a department dedicated to just those. So all that is encompassed into my organic website traffic.
Phenomenal. Well, Zach, this has been fun. I appreciate you packing a lot into those last few minutes. Appreciate you sharing the story. Still, every time I think of that wheel, I'm going to get goosebumps, because that's a crazy story. Very, very excited for your book. What was it? April
13th.
April 13th.
Yeah.
April 13th. That's launching, I would guess, on Amazon and everywhere.
Yes, sir, it is.
Awesome. Well, I'll be on the list, snagging it. Gotta join the ranks of all the other Apex members and all their books I have up there.
There you go.
So very, very excited to see that come out, and just appreciate you coming on, man. It's been cool to watch your journey. I know there's some nuggets here that I'm going to take away, and if people are listening closely, there's definitely some nuggets in there. So appreciate you, man.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. And for anyone that's listening, if y'all want to reach out, my DMs are open. That's me and my DMs. So just follow me on social media, and you can find all that social media at ZachROIWilliams.com.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I was just going to ask for the plug there. Any last thoughts for people before we jump off?
Man, consistency is key. Like I said, it's taken me 10 years to get here, but now I'm finally here, and I would trade all the hard work I've done over the last 10 years to be here. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, hey, man, you might not be able to make it tomorrow, just keep going, stay consistent, and you got this.
I love it. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Talk to you soon.